League 5. We're here for day 2. We've just watched the first played round of the finals, and Triaverse have just nullified the advantage that Footwork carried into the final. That 1-0 lead they had from advancing from the winners bracket has just been cancelled out in the first round of play. The mighty Triaverse team taking it down and nullifying this, turning it into effectively a best-of-3 match. Joining me here in the hosting studio, we have Alexius Carda, CCP Nullarbor, CCP Etern, and joining us from behind the scenes, CCP Fozzie joins us. Fozzie, thanks for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been a fun weekend so far, a lot of really great matches, and it's nice to be able to chat with you guys.
So Fozzie, what happened there? Why did Triaverse take that round so comfortably, it seemed, from us watching here in the hosting studio?
Well, I think having the Guardian and keeping him alive so long just basically made an excellent trade-off compared to having the extra DPS from the 2 Ishtars. With the fact that Guardian survived longer than an Ishtar, that more than equalized the damage difference, and all of a sudden you had a pretty big advantage with how the points were being used for Tri.
What did Footwork get wrong that round, Alex?
Well, I don't know that they necessarily got anything wrong, but what I've noticed is a lot of the times where teams are bringing a Paladin or another Marauder and a logistic ship, it gives their opponents a very difficult decision to make if they're not also packing logistics. Because if they power through the logistics, they're getting pounded on by the Marauder and all the supporting DPS. And they're losing the little damage that they do have. I mean, these teams that go no Logi, they're banking everything on that they can out DPS the enemy team before those reps can stabilize. And if they go for the Paladin or the Marauder, then I mean, we've seen teams try to do it, and even if they do successfully destroy it, it's a Pyrrhic victory. They've spent so much time shooting it that they can't even overcome the reps of the logistic ship. So do you go for the logistic ship and get pounded on by the Marauder constantly, or do you go for the Marauder and lose enough DPS that you can't compensate for the logistic ship?
And that's exactly what we've seen in one of the earlier rounds. I'm trying to remember exactly who it was fighting, but the opposing team spent all their effort trying to get a Vargar down. They did eventually punch through the reps, but by that point the fight was done and dusted. The other team had wiped the floor with them.
Exactly, and these teams, unless they just go with the meta of having logistics and or a Marauder to back it up, they're going to have to come up with a counter to that meta because it seems extremely strong, and these pure DPS setups are not able to counter it.
Yeah, it's also interesting to talk a little bit about the ranges that they warp the guys in at. Bringing the Paladins right in at 0, both teams made that choice, and it's a pretty dangerous choice if you come up against, say, a really heavy blaster team, like a bunch of Astartes or anything like that, or Sleipnirs even. But it worked really well against the kind of drone kiting team that you were seeing, like the drone kiting component of the Footwork team. Those Ishtars needed to drop the sentries and run, but there was no way to get far enough away from that Paladin.
So a little birdie has just whispered in my ear, we have the bannings for the second round. Triaverse have banned the Vulture and the Demos. Footwork have banned the Paladin and the Astarte. What are our thoughts on those bannings, Nullarbor?
I think the Paladin's probably a good ban after that battle. I thought it was interesting, that last match, Verge made some really good target calling, going for those Ishtars early and getting that DPS off the field. I don't think the bans really change their ability to do that in the next on the next battle, but I don't know. Who knows? It could go either way at this point.
What would you predict the teams might bring in the next round now, Etern, based on those bannings?
Was it Vultures were out, weren't they?
Yeah, Triaverse have banned the Vulture and the Demos. Footwork have banned the Paladin and the Astarte.
I don't know. Maybe they bring the Sleipnirs, but yeah, I don't know. This is really interesting stage because you've probably seen most of the teams, compositions at this point, and whether they can outmatch or whether they just bring something safe again. I don't know.
Yeah, we could definitely see the same kind of Golem Vulture team before, but with Vultures substituted for Sleipnirs, that would probably work quite well.
Right. In turn, at this point, how much of it is down to teams out-metaing one another? How much of it is fundamental guesswork? at this point, is the battle done and dusted before the ships even hit the battlefield, realistically, based on calls on fleet comms?
I definitely don't think it's done before the match happens. I think a lot of it does come down to the meta, but no matter how much how good you win the meta, there's always you have to be able to fly your setup that you bring, and you can outban and outpick the other team, and then wind up losing just because of pilot error or it's not your strongest setup.
Fozzie, you've now become kind of well known in your work with Rise for ship balancing and for pulling together these ships and kind of almost giving us new ships, because you're making so many more ships relevant that weren't previously relevant, which is fantastic news for us, the player. But what surprised you this weekend? What has been fielded that you weren't expecting to be fielded? What hasn't been fielded that you perhaps expected to see here over the weekend?
I think the amount of Marauders being used maybe a little bit higher than I expected. I also didn't really expect to see a lot of Asteros. We've seen it's really just been Footwork that's been bringing them a couple times. It's a pretty clever ship to use, especially if you're taking advantage of the drone HP bonus on it, because that synergizes really well with using them with rep drones. So if you field them with a full flight of light rep drones and use them as utility ships, they've got a lot of mids, and they've got that flight that is very hard to destroy with smart bombs. You can do a lot of really cool stuff there, but I was honestly not expecting those to be very popular.
So, Alexei, we've basically turned this fight now into a best of three. What are your thoughts about how this is going to play out over the next 3 rounds?
Well, I mean, I made the call that Try the Verge would win there. However, that was after I had seen the setups that were on the field. I do think that Footwork is the stronger team and the more consistent team, and hopefully if they can, shake out that loss and focus, I think they can pull out 2 of the next 3 matches.
What do you think we're going to see fielded in this next round, Fozzie? What's your prediction?
Oof, that is a tough one. No one banned the Sleipnir, so I would expect to see some more command ships. Really, there's like the Astarte and the Vulture both out, 2 ships that have been seeing a lot of use, but actually. Yeah, the Astarte is banned. But the Eos and the Sleipnir are not. Neither is the Claymore. They're also excellent choices. And honestly, I think people may not be kind of recognizing the strength of a combat damnation in this format quite yet. I think it would be interesting to see if people start taking advantage of that.
We've really not seen many damnations or Claymores on the field. Certainly today, I don't think I've seen any actually of either type on the field today, have we?
Not today. There was a damnation fielded yesterday, but I think it was mainly just in a support role. But since Odyssey 1.1, we've given all of the command ships quite significant combat abilities. And so that's why you're seeing ships like the Eos and the Vulture being used in combat roles so far. And I think there's definitely a lot of room for people to take advantage of the Damnation and the Claymore, the other 2 ships that got their combat abilities boosted. And
not only that, the Nighthawk has made like 1 appearance yesterday, maybe 2 appearances, but none today either. Do you think this is a signal that there are certain command ships, and the Absolution has also not appeared terribly often. There are certain command ships which aren't quite, in terms of sheer combat performance, compatible with their class counterparts?
I think a lot of it speaks to the environment as well. The Nighthawk probably is a little bit weaker than the average for command ships right now overall. The Absolution, in a lot of ways, is just has the same problems with the tournament environment that a lot of Amar ships do. It's quite vulnerable to E-War, and it's not very fast. The Paladin makes up for that by being able to eliminate the E-War effect by going into Bastion mode. But other than that, there's a smaller amount of Amar ships being fielded, laser ships in general, because of all that vulnerability. They're vulnerable to newts, they're vulnerable to tracking disruptors, and then as well, they're still vulnerable to the DEMPs and ECM that everyone else is. And that's the kind of thing that's really, really common in a tournament environment.
Fozzie, how's your job in CCP working in the regard that obviously we have a lot of guys such as Etern and Nullarbor, they're working on projects for Rubicon, but your kind of job at the moment is kind of an ongoing job. You're constantly rebalancing different classes, different groups of ships. So your work is less expansion specific. Does that change how you interact with the rest of your colleagues in the office?
Actually, my job is probably more expansion specific than most. I'm on one of our feature teams and our job is to be releasing specific content for the expansion. So the community guys, they definitely interface with our expansions, like they are doing things that tie into it. A lot of the stuff that ties into, especially the thematic things, and to like communicating with the players. But I'm one of the people, like our game designers on the feature teams, who my job is to release features for the expansion, and that is actually the core of my job. So for Odyssey, or for Retribution, Rubicon, it's getting a little bit late and I'm a little bit tired after all this. I'm working both on balance work. I'm doing a lot of work with the warp speed, with the interceptors and interdictors, but then also with the deployable structures, which are one of the key features of Rubicon.
How happy have you been with the players' reception to the work you've been doing for Rubicon, particularly the warp speed changes, the balancing of the Sisters of Eve ships? How happy have you been with the community reception to those?
Well, I think I've been quite happy. People are very excited about the warp speed changes. I think a lot of players recognize how big of a change this is. A lot of players, whenever you make a significant change, there's going to be some players that like the results, some that don't like it. But that's just the nature of making disruptive changes. With game design for EVE Online, we've got a series of kind of key concepts that we want to keep in mind when we're balancing. And one of them is that a feature or a change to the game, or just a aspect of the game, it's better for it to be something that people get emotionally involved in, even if that emotional involvement is unhappiness. We would rather have people care about what's going on. Apathy is the opposite of what we're looking for. So we want to actually shake people out of their comfort zone a little bit.
Yeah, so you'd rather people were passionate one way or the other, rather than just kind of passively engaging in the content.
Speaking of, there was a lot of consternation about the warp speed changes. Some players complaining that it was too fast for the smaller ships and a little too slow for the larger ships. And you did make some balancing adjustments for that. Do you want to go into that?
Yeah, well, we've been continuously tweaking based on what we've been seeing on Singularity and what we've been getting in feedback. There's been a couple of different rounds of the warp speed changes where they've been tweaked a bit. We've upped the speed of the slower ones a little bit. In our last pass, we upped the speed of the freighters and the battle cruisers and command ships a little bit. And then we've also compressed a little bit the high end, including putting a cap on how quickly you decelerate, just to make sure that you can actually see which direction someone's coming from, and you get a bit more of a feeling they're actually coming out of warp. And try not to confuse people with having things just sort of appear as far as their client's concerned. So we've been continuously tweaking with that, and I expect there will be more tweaking after the expansion as we continue to turn the knobs. Having this ability to turn these knobs is new. We didn't have that ability until this expansion, and so it's going to be just now another aspect of the game that we can continuously rebalance.
It definitely feels to me that this set, and again we talked about this much earlier on today, the whole concept of the Rubicon and the line in the sand, but it does feel like this expansion more so than previous 2 or 3 expansions really is setting up the future. We really are seeing groundwork laid for big changes that are going to be coming forward. I mean, is that deliberate, Fozzie? Is the name deliberately meant to kind of evoke that kind of thought from the player base, or are we reading too much into it?
No, I mean, that's definitely the intent behind the name choice. We are always working on foundation stuff. That's something that's continuous in every expansion. One of the things that's different with this one is that this is the first expansion we've released since we've put together the 5-year long-term roadmap and 3-year shorter-term roadmap that CCP Seagull has brought into place since she took over as the senior producer for EVE Online. And so that is what we announced at FanFest, but it wasn't around when we did the initial planning for Odyssey. So this is the first expansion where that is something that's been there from the beginning. And that's there's a lot of bits and pieces of this expansion that are tied into our plan for the future.
Awesome. That's great to hear. That's great to hear. Is this something that's being kind of encapsulated in all the different parts of the company, Etern? This kind of feeling that this 5-year plan is something that everybody can get behind. It kind of gives more structure to the long-term development of the game.
Definitely. We've sat down in the community team with CCP Seagull. We've talked with people up and down on the live events team, on basically every single team that I'm part of, and we're buying into this 5-year plan and the 3-year plan and even the 1-year plan that's essentially going to try to transform EVE.
So same question that you know, Livor, have you found that this longer term kind of vision for how EVE develops and how New Eden as a concept, you know, with Valkyrie and Dust, how it develops in the long term, it gives your kind of long term future structure and what you can do in the future?
Yeah, I mean, this is a result of just, you know, EVE really maturing its development process. You know, we've got a lot of people in positions now who are, you know, making sure that we've got, you know, good plans in place, that we've got good estimates for how long things are going to take. From the Dust side of things, you know, Dust is still finding its feet with that regard, and we've got a new executive producer who's just stepped into that role in Shanghai, and we're hoping to you know, basically achieve that same kind of maturity in terms of plotting out a really long-term vision with sort of quite precise plan to achieve it. So it's pretty exciting.
And how's the new Dust EP settling in? And how's he settling into his new job?
He's just landed, so yeah, we'll have to. It's pretty early days, so we'll have to give him some time to find his feet. And but I'm sure we're going to see sort of the fruits of his labor starting in the next upcoming Dust releases.
Awesome. Etern, we mentioned Valkyrie earlier. We don't know as a player base exactly how this is going to fit into the overall lore and the narrative of New Eden. But have you guys, without giving any specifics or telling me exactly how it fits, have you guys started development on how the lore will work and how that will integrate from a lore role-playing standpoint, how it's going to integrate into the overall universe?
We've had some very, very preliminary talks about it, but nothing really official, and I think it's still a little bit too far away to start really going into the lore of it. I mean, a lot of it's very straightforward, that it's, you know, dogfighters in space, so there isn't too much where we have to, like with Dust, where suddenly there's this entire new faction, this entire new sort of entity in the clone soldiers coming into existence that we have to figure out how to explain it. So I think there's still plenty of time for us to see how Valkyrie develops as a game before we really have to start nailing down the lore of it.
Cool. One of the things that I've been excited most about in terms of community feedback and listening to the community as they've received them has been the collector's editions. I know that over the past couple of weeks we've seen some great unboxing videos from the likes of Syndicate showing off her new collector's edition, and it just looks like the most fantastic collector's edition, one of the best collector's editions I've ever seen of any game. It just really looks fantastic, and people seem to be excited about it. Are you pleased with the reception so far, Fozzie, that people have had from it?
Yeah, it's definitely been very exciting. I've been enjoying mine as well. I've been listening to the Symphony soundtrack quite a bit at work, and I think it's been great to see people enjoying stuff. I got to also play a bit of a part in the video that we made, the response to Miner Dave's fly your rifter around your house video, where we made a fly rifter around the office video. And I've also been really happy with the reception of the Golden Pod, which is a feature that my team, Team 50, worked on and put together.
Now, you had a really interesting statistic that I'm sure you put on Twitter 3 or 4 days ago about the implant that allows the Golden Pod to work.
Yeah.
Are you going to share that one? Because I thought that was hilarious when I read about it.
I actually don't remember the exact number now. That's the problem, but I can tell you the gist of it. It's the way it works for anyone that's not familiar is that there's this golden pod. It replaces the normal pod. It's exactly the same in every way, except it just looks different and is awesome and shows that you are a discerning gentleman or gentlewoman. And the way it works is you get an implant into your head, and that implant is indestructible. By normal means. It doesn't go away when you get potted. It sticks with you when you get moved through jump clones. The story is that Genolution has a deal that puts it into every one of your clones. But you can still get rid of it if you want by pulling it out of your head, and just like any other implant, that does destroy it. And we have a warning that pops up and tells you that and everything like that. But a certain surprisingly high, but still pretty low, percentage of the population of people that got the collector's edition have actually already put the implant in and then pulled it out, destroying it, and therefore not having this permanent item anymore. I will actually say I've been pleasantly surprised that number hasn't gone up very much. So as more and more people have gotten their collector's edition and have been putting the implant in their head, the percentage of implants in the game that have been destroyed is dropping and dropping because most people aren't destroying their implants.
Please tell me somebody that pulled it has petitioned it. Please tell me somebody's petitioned it.
I actually have no idea.
That would be amazing. That would be
I
amazing.
wouldn't be shocked.
I like to
Somebody
find out
who's
that it
gonna
was
done
a
it
group
anyway.
doing it on purpose. Like they're just hunting them down and destroying them. Like they don't like them in the game.
We have already had implants destroyed in loot.
Wow.
Really?
Yep.
Okay,
Oh.
so the other question to do with the collector's edition that I'm curious about, the one thing that I wanted from the collector's edition more than anything, the thing that excited me the most by far wasn't the book, wasn't the CD, as cool as those things were, wasn't the Rifter. The one thing that really excited me for what it could be used for in the future was the mystery code. So we've already seen the first batch of things that are going to be tied in with that code. Can we get some hints? I've got 3 CCP devs here. Can we get some hints of what the kind of, at least the kind of thing that we might see in the future?
These are pretty. This stuff is pretty DEFCON like 5 secret. Like it's something that we've been already had to swear in like a very arcane ritual with bloodletting and all that, not to tell anybody. So I don't think we're going to be able to give you much in the way of hints on this.
But
I will say though,
people are going to be excited to buy it if they have a hint of what could be there.
Yeah, and there's already awesome stuff. I mean, you're getting the arm, cybernetic arm, you're getting the Plex, and you're getting the special fighter in Valkyrie. So we've already announced all that. There is more stuff that we know of internally that we're going to be doing and has been talked about inside the company that we know about, but that we can't tell you about. I'm personally really excited about that. And then there's more stuff that we'll continue to do throughout the future. But I can't give you any details, except to say that, like we said before, just about everything that CCP does in the future will involve this mystery code. So if you can think about all the things that CCP might do in the future, the mystery code will be involved with those.
So we're in for the long haul here. This isn't a gimmick. This is something that's going to be heavily used by CCP to reward those people that went all in on the collector's edition.
Yep, yeah, it's been something already. There's been some discussions where we've been asked to do a bit of brainstorming about things that we can continue to add on with the mystery code in the future and tie into future expansions of EVE, other games like Valkyrie that CCP is doing, and keep tying it in and just throwing a cool little surprise to the mystery code people each time.
Okay, well, I think we're almost ready. I think we're getting ready for the teams to take their position on grid. I know I've already asked, but just to get some absolute clarification, I'm going to ask everybody for their predictions one last time before we hand over to the commentary team. Fozzie, who have you got down for this one?
Sorry, I missed your question because I had to focus on something here.
That's all right. I was asking who have you got for this round? Who's your prediction for this round?
Probably Try. Footwork is awesome as well. Footwork is a team that's incredibly solid, and is getting way better. But Try is just a really, really talented team. I've got to figure out some stuff here though, so I'll be checking out for now.
No problem. Thanks, Fozzie. Etern, who have you got down for this round?
I think Footwork's going to bounce back and pick up this one.
Yeah, that's a strong call. I'm with you on that one. Alexiev, who have you got?
I think Footwork will bounce back as well. I think they're the more consistent team, and I gotta believe they will make the adjustments necessary.
Nullarbor?
I don't know if this is wise, but we're all going against Fozzie. So Footwork, I think someone's going to bring a Sleipnir team. I don't know who, but I think Footwork are going to win anyway.
You know, I really want Footwork to win this one, but I also don't think it's right that Fozzie stands alone. So I'll be the dude to go for Try of Verge to take this to a 2-1. So just to remind you all before we break, the score at the moment is 1-1. Footwork did carry a 1-0 advantage going into this final, as their prize for coming out of the winners bracket. The first round proper went to Try of Verge, so they've leveled it up 1-1. And we're just about to enter the next round. So we're going to cut here for the commentary team of Apathetic Brent and Bacchanalian.